Welcome, everyone. Thanks for joining our next webinar episode. We're thrilled to be welcoming Dr. Claus to join us today to talk about data center construction and how lean systems are really helping in that space. With experience on 30 plus data center projects, he's got a wealth of knowledge on how to keep these critical projects on time and on schedule. So I think it's going to be a fantastic discussion today. Just a couple of housekeeping notes before we jump into it, give everybody a chance to get on the call. This session is being recorded, so we will put the recording up on our website as well as our YouTube channel after if you'd like to go back and watch it. As well, if you have any questions throughout the presentation, feel free to put them either in the chat box or in the Q&A section, and we will answer them at the end of the conversation. We'll have some time for open Q&A. If you ask a really good question, we might even jump in and answer it as we go. We'll see. And with that, I want to highlight a couple of announcements before I pass it over to Claus and Alan to begin today's discussion. And the first is that we do have the link up for our next webinar session. This is going to be in May. This one will be featuring Dominic Desmarais of Graham Construction. He's their lean construction director. It's going to be all about production systems and design and construction, and would highly encourage you to attend. If you've never sat in on one of Dom's presentations before, he's probably the funniest presenter in the lean construction space. Can't guarantee he will bring costumes and props, but there's a good chance he might. So do stay tuned for more information on this, but we do have the landing page up and ready if you'd like to RSVP for that next session. This is also up on our website as well. Just go to our events page if you'd like to sign up for this. In addition to that, we have kicked off a new series, and this is our Discover Nialli series. So if you'd like to get more information on how our software works, today's session is all about thought leadership and lean construction and digital advancement, all of those sorts of great topics. But if you'd like to dive into our actual software and find out more about visual planning, digital visual planning, we've just launched this great new series. These are sessions over lunch hour. And if you are new to working with us, you will qualify to get lunch on us. So we will send you a $35 Uber Eats voucher just because we know how difficult it is to step away from busy projects and go learn more about software that's out there. So again, this is up on our website. You can also scan the QR code if you'd like more information, and we hope to see you at some of these sessions. Final announcement, we have several upcoming events happening across the spring here. We're going to be at the HEC convention next week in Orlando, Florida. So if you're heading to that show, do come check us out. Also, Digital Construction Week, I know, is another big flagship show happening in London. That says March and it should say June. Typo on my end there. Again, if you'd like to learn more about the events and initiatives we're running, just tune into our website. Everything's up on our events page if you'd like to learn more. All right, let's get into the meat of today's discussion, and welcome Professor Claus. Thank you so much for joining us today. I also have Alan Boyku from Nialli's side. He's our product director, and he will be assisting in moderating today's discussion. So with that, I'll kick it over to both of you and stop sharing from my side.
Thank you very much, Laura. All right. Hi, everyone. What I want to talk today about is how end-to-end delivery and rethinking of delivery of data centers is happening. And Laura already said it. I have been involved in probably 600 projects plus with my team and my company. And data centers are always very special because their delivery time is very crucial. So let's go into this. Before we enter the topic, just quickly let me introduce my company. Rethinking is founded by Bülent and me. He's my business partner. We are now nearly 11 years old. We're turning 11 in May. We operate from different locations in Europe. Mainly the main office is in Stuttgart, Germany, but we're also having offices in Switzerland, in Zurich and in Bern. I'm currently right now in Zurich, and we're also having an office in Vienna. And our team size is roughly 40 people. And with this 40 people, we're helping deliver and support deliver around projects around Europe, but also sometimes even abroad. And we have been in the USA, not yet in Canada. We will see maybe this change in the future. Some reference projects you may be aware of. We have the company MainCubes. They delivered 3 data center projects in a row with us in Germany, Frankfurt. we have helped Digital Realty and Excite delivering a project in Vienna. And currently, right now, we are actually involved in all three of those modules from Green Mountain Rock. That's a joint venture of KMW and Green Mountain from Norway, based in Mainz. And it's a very exciting project. We are currently right now involved in all three of those. So, but now let's picture the problem we actually face. A little statement from my side why data centers and especially hyperscalers like the one in Mainz I just explained or showed are very important. Picture this, a hyperscaler is waiting for your building. Every day it isn't ready is not a lost construction day, it is a lost operating day for infrastructure the world depends on. All phones, all AI machines, everything we do with internet basically needs data centers. And these projects, they just don't have any buffer on the delivery. And I always feel myself a little bit like I feel the people in the past when they built the railways, the first crucial railway connections, or the first crucial motorway connections, they must have felt the same way as we do nowadays with data center, because that's a crucial infrastructure we actually develop here. That's not just something nice, it's actually something very important we have to do. And those data centers have a little dilemma. The owners of those data centers have high expectations, and those expectations come because most owners of data center having very long-term contracts when they rent them out or when they using these data centers. So basically the business case of a data center is laid out of over 30 years with high pressure contracts, with a huge amount of money, and obviously the starting date of the operation and the quality is absolutely key. Then we have this compressed time to market. There are many data center projects, and it's really important to bring them online as quickly as possible. And when we look at those projects, at least in Germany or Europe, you easily find many projects between 200 and 300 million euros that have to be constructed and delivered within 18 months. And thinking about that, delivering like construction work with that amount of money in just 18 months is a lot to do and a big challenge. And then we have the other problem, we have to control the costs, because these data centers are business cases, and rising costs is the last thing these contracts actually want and have to do. And that means every data center project team has to burden to deliver fast, spend less, and there's just no trade-off because the penalties of those projects are so big. Plus, also, I even have seen companies that wanted to be in the data center market and dropped out because they couldn't keep up with the speed and couldn't deliver on time. The wrong answer for that is that we say, hey, we just need to find a couple of heroes. So that means we need to find people that will be the heroes, and those superheroes, they will just manage us, great superhero intendants or superintendents or superhero project managers, those projects. The individuals will not manage and really have the power and the consistency to really helping deliver a project in which we have 60 plus companies, subcontractors working in it, in which we have 500 to 700 people, trade partners, working in every morning to do the fit out work, for instance. But we can change the system. We can change the system thinking of those projects and the project type. If we focusing on the processes, if we focusing on the workflow, if we accepting that those processes and workflows will have some flexibility in a data center, if we analyzes the causes and root causes of any interactions in order to improve, and if we continue improving the systems, then we can actually achieve sometimes unrealistic milestones and timelines in projects. And we will also save that no one in this project needs to make an all-nighter to make the project possible. That's basically what we should do. So what does this mean? If I getting asked to implement Lean in a data center, I always ask the first question, well, in which phase is your data center? Because when we implement the last planner system, we can help with the last planner system to meet these deadlines. And this can be true for design, construction, or the handover. And we also can accelerate the cost reduction, and we can obviously reduce the claims will be raised within the project. So why is that? The reason behind it is the last planner system is nearly perfect for a data center because we can keep up with the speed. We can give a huge amount of people an overall common understanding what should happen in the overall process. And although data centers, some will claim, well, they all are basically the same. To be fair, in all 31 projects, we did make an overall process analysis, and it was always so important to generate a common understanding amongst the people, because we don't find in a data center project only people that have already built 2 or 3 data centers. Usually I find a team existing of 10% experts that have been involved in data center projects over a period of time, and 90% people that being in their first or second data center. Then we are reducing the timeline, what we're actually focusing on to get a smooth workflow, as the last planner system suggests. The milestone and phase plan in the data center is focusing on the upcoming 6 to 8 months, usually not more, because this is the window you really need to focusing on to make sure that you have a smooth workflow, and then you continue. And also, this is probably a very German thing. Everyone knows a 6-week look ahead on a data center project, or in general in the last planner system. But on a data center project, this needs to be very, very, very detailed. And I have a picture later on. We really need to have a detailed 6-week look ahead. And this means we have 500 to 600 daily activities on our last planner look ahead for just the upcoming week. And this is repeated 6 times. And of course, we will have to have a very systemic, confident weekly production meeting, because production is like the heartbeat of the project. Everyone has to be there. This meeting needs to be installed as the most important meeting of the week. So that everyone is there, the site managers, the project managers, and of course the trade partners and superintendents, in order to make sure that we see what will happen next week and what did we learn from last week. And the improvement, even though we have some repeatable processes in these tight projects, the improvement is made every week, because we want to gain more stability, because the stability reduces our timeline. And as I said in the beginning, we have tight deadlines in data center projects, and that's why we need to have those improvements. Good. So as I suggested, Lean works for me with the last planner system in a data center project in 3 Lean systems. The first system, phase 1, is design. We really need to embed a Lean and the last planner system in design. So the principles here is we want to have early collaboration between all stakeholders. That means also the client, the owner. And although in design, very rare that the owner already has his tenant for the project, but as soon as the tenant is there, my experience is design changes a little bit for the fit out. That means we need to make some adaptations. That's why Lean and Last Planner works perfectly in design. And also we need to identify very early any errors and flaws. At least in Europe, data centers will have flaws in the design when we take a design towards the building permit, and then afterwards how we actually perform it, and we have the trades that are basically working with that. That means we're getting fewer design changes because we're having a better communication between all trades partners, and we have a higher productivity between all design partners, and that is also lowering the cost of the project. The second phase is the execution phase. I think that's the most common phase, and most people will agree, hey, of course, data center project, tight deadline, lots of trade partners, a lot of intersections that have to be managed somehow. So therefore, we implement last planner Lean principles, and also in some areas, we can use the element of task planning, incorporate in the last planner system, in order to get higher productivity. To have a feeling like when looking at those like bigger than 40 megawatt data centers, modules, 40 megawatt data center module has so many small tasks to coordinate. If you get them into a very good smooth workflow and in a very good common understanding, we have achieved benefits of productivity gains of roughly in 12 months, you can outperform 1 month. So that means you do the work in the data center of 30 months in just 13 months in just 12 months. So you can save yourself at least 1 month's time in 12 months if the system works quite well and is a very high performing system. And then we're coming to another area. In this area where we're focusing on the commissioning and handover phase. I have to be honest, in the first late data center project 10 years ago, we did start the first time with that system. And we realized, hey, Last Planner works perfectly for that because Last Planner can be focusing on space, as we usually do in construction, corridor, power on unit rooms, whatever, or the white space. But when we have commissioning and handover, we just swapping space with systems, cooling system, energy systems, etc. And then you work in your process and your work on week and on daily basis towards your system, that you know that your system is basically up and running on time. Good. When we do this, the question is, well, what are the benefits to use lean construction across all stakeholders? And as you already heard from me, we're not restricting lean construction to just the construction and the trade partners. In design, it's very important that we have the owner and the client involved. Well, obviously, if you're using lean construction in all phases, you can eliminate waste, and this means you reduce your project cost. The first cost we can reduce is a quick, simple calculation. If, say so, you have 100 million euro or dollar data center, and this data center, the construction phase will be 18 months. And if we say the time-bound cost for this construction is roughly 18%, means $80 million or euros for that project. That means in other terms, or in my language, you actually spend 1 million a month to have a factory, a temporary factory, in which you invite your trade partners to build something. You heard right. I say it's a temporary factory you have to pay for. And every month you try to be as productive as possible to get together with your trade partners as much value into this factory to build that machine, which will be the data center in the future. If we are more productive and save ourselves a month, we saved also 1 million in time-bound cost in construction. If we going longer, the owner or someone has to spend another million to just have a factory, a site available that someone can come to actually put in his value. So that means we really need to have this focus on faster project delivery, not only to achieving time to market, but also to keep the cost down. Further, we really need to have the transparency in order to allow all the people with their knowledge to really helping us to achieve in the project we actually want. And we need to have more predictability in our schedules or in our achievements of milestones, because in a data center business, I believe trust is the elementary clue that sticks people together. And if you deliver those high complex projects always on time, without an heroic effort, you're building predictability, you're building trust, and you're getting better projects in the future. And as well, the better communication in those projects just make a lot of fun. So just as an input, basically, what I wanted to bring across to then start, obviously, the conversation is really, I believe, we really need to start lean in the data center project delivery world. Why? Those projects are time critical. Those projects are very complex. Those projects a dilemma in the pressure they get, and this is just higher as in everything else. And now I did not spoke about one reason. I also always say a data center Why is it more complex than a hospital project, for instance? It is more complex because the complexity in the MEP works and everything is in all the smallest corridors and rooms. And the big space, the white space, is pretty much boring. There's not so much stuff in, but that is for the construction and for the fit out very complex. But the most complexity you really getting when you're having like 3 meters high on 17 different layers MEP installation. And now you need to find out what is the best and the fast process to install that and keep the people on board to keep on that process and actually being really and stay efficient. And if you do so, then you actually start delivering excellence in data center and can really move things forward. And that's why Lean needs to be started quite early, ideally, and also have to be there at the end of the project until it's done. And I would say, Alan, if you want, we then basically could go straight into questions and discussion.
Thank you so much,
That
Claus.
sounds good. Oh, go ahead, Laura.
Oh no, I was just gonna say, yeah, I think we can have some questions. And folks, if you have anything you'd like to ask Professor Claus, just put it in the chat. Otherwise, maybe Alan, there's a couple of questions that we can ask to kind of get people thinking and started on this.
Yeah, I think you probably answered one of the questions that people have on their mind. You know, how are data centers different? You know, the people have built hospitals and, you know, large utilities and refineries, but I think you answered that. I think the other, you said an interesting thing that, you know, you would expect that, oh, you built one data center, you built them all. But in your perspective, you said something interesting that people that come to the project, it's new. It's, you know, they haven't built one or two. And usually the rule is you get the trades and subs that have done some, you know, done some work in a, you know, they've worked on a hospital or they've worked on something. So how do you introduce them then to this production system? Do you have a couple seminars or like workshops, or why don't you help people figure out how to do this?
Actually, it's twofold. The one thing is either they know how to build a data center or not. I argue, first of all, when we introduce a lean construction system on a project in either phase, no, not one person, not one single person is allowed to working on that system without having at least 1 day full of training, how the last planner system and the lean principles bind together and how this works in that project and how this person can put a value into the project every single day. This is kind of a license to drive a car. Of course, it's just sticky notes or it's a software, Nialli. But if you don't have the mindset behind it, I always say it's like we're turning on the second brain in the people's, because people using usually in projects only a project management thinking brain, setting targets, controlling if the target is achieved. And lean is also production thinking. And this is the second brain half. So we turn that on. Okay, you also need to think in a production. Who is the next client? Did you really understood what the next guy or lady needs from you to continue to work? Don't make assumptions. 50% of all assumptions are wrong. And this is basically how we start and how it brings a good push forward to have the people on board. And also during the project, when new people come, our principle is as soon as there are 6 or 5 people new in the project, we make another training to keep them up and going. And the invest of 1 day is always paid off in 10 or 20 times more, that this person completely understands and deep dived how this works. And the second question, which basically I think is twofold behind, is due to the fact that the market is so expanding, and there obviously, if the market is expanding, it's not enough that one team is building a data center, and if they finish, they're moving to the next one. In this case, the market is not expanding. The market is only scaling if this team that built a data center splits up into 3 new teams and takes in 90% newbies juniors, and then they build the next data center and they splitting up again. That's the scale effect. And that means these teams having a huge trouble to teach people how to build a data center and what's the difference. And now coming into a room in which you see for every single space in this data center, a post-it note from the experts written what they do to achieve their weekly target on a daily basis, what they do on a weekly basis to achieve the end result in 4 months. So these people can learn with their eyes by just watching and listening to everyone's production, to all the know-how of the different trade partners. And that gives them a fast learning experience to quickly discover and learn how things are done in a data center.
Yeah, that's interesting. So you're actually pulling, you're having sort of thought leaders come in and influence, and that's perfect. So, it's not, obviously you've been successful in helping people build these centers. But have there been projects that haven't been so successful? What are the gotchas? What are the things that, can creep up that affect, you said you go from 13 to 12 months. Well, do you have any examples where things went from 13 to 17 months, and why was that? What did you try and do to mitigate that? What's your advice to people? Because things will go wrong.
Yes, definitely. But we have been involved in a data center in Portugal. And this had definitely a time expansion. It was actually a modular data center. So the team and the client both did the first time a modular data center. And we have been involved in the design phase, and we've been quite quick and fast in the design phase. That was good. We then supported also the prefabrication of the modules. However, and then they came, as it sometimes happens, with new tenants and changes. And if you have produced from 300 modules, 270 modules already, and they are stored on a field, basically, well, putting in a change is just insane. And the point was the change had to be done somehow, and that messed up the project completely. So there was quite craftsmanship, like people working out on the field, identifying the right module, starting unpacking the module, starting to changing the MEP work in that module before they could load it and send it to Portugal. And this was basically killing the project. Yes. So, of course, we have been involved in projects that been bad and did not go well. But it had often to do, or basically always to do with changes that are too massive to the project. We also been sometimes here in Zurich, we've been involved in a data center that was horrible. That was 6 months late, which is insane for a project. But this was because the GC, it was his first data center project. And I argue he might obviously just wanted to have the turnover in the books and thought it can't be so difficult to deliver a data center. So therefore, in this case, we helped the team to get the coals out of the fire, which in a way, you never ever getting back to the original date, of course. No. But others, we had other projects, they're being bad in design because design was late and not properly done. And we wanted to, we just started with lean construction to rise up the productivity. And then you're having a team, which is really good. And you're having a project that is good. And then you stand there and have no design that is approved for construction. This is also then bad. However, this project managed it at the end because the last planner system is also very powerful in this case to be flexible enough to, with the team, to figure out what can we build to not wait, because waiting is a bad idea. We're not getting more time because the design is late. So what else can we do? What is the workaround? How can we use the resources we have? How can we use every single day to be valuable for the project? And this project, basically, even though the design was late and had trouble with that, this project was punctual on the day, perfect. And this project also had nearly non-claim. And this is also something rare happen if you have so many trade partners on site that you, at least in Germany, that you have nearly non-claims that coming from the trade partners, because things never go perfectly as they are planned when you're contracting them.
Hmm. You said something that we don't hear very often, and that's the benefit of the flexibility of the last planner system.
Yes.
Do you have an example of that? Like, are you talking about being able to shift milestones or shift phase plan, or give an example of how it can be flexible?
Just a recent example. We recently in Germany we have a huge data center project. It's massive, and they wanted to start in December and then January. And we built in December. We did all the process analysis and phase plans, and in January they really wanted to move up. However, the weather was in Berlin that cold that the construction of the core could not continue. It was just minus 14, 15, 16 degrees. So it was not possible physically to continue with concrete construction and so on. So the core brought in a massive delay of a couple of weeks. And thinking about having a TAC plan for the fit out, which you could do, but this is very strict, and that means just like you wait until you start, because you want to keep that pace, you want to keep that distance. And in the last planner system allows you, instead of just put on pause and wait, it allows you with the team to find ways to add value to the project. That can be to prepare more logistics. That can be to identify, well, hang on, there is a switch station. We still can start there. So like just really like having the guys there and say, well, guys, we all know there is time pressure. So it's not a good idea to now just raise their hands and say, oh, someone else is late. Now we are late too. No, we are all in this boat together. So what can we do, even though this is bad? What else can we do? It's not possible in a massive project with 100 million euros that you guys tell me that we now need to go home and wait and see. That's not possible. And now you're finding ways and you're changing the phase plan. And of course, you try to adapting a little bit. And also the goal is to actually not move all milestones immediately to the back, because the pressure is still on. So the question is then, how can we also use this to optimize the process to achieve the milestone in a shorter period of time? And I think the flexibility is crucial for the last planner system, and that's why I love also to combine TACT and last planner, but never have this strict line. You only can go this way.
Yeah, it's those conversations, as you say, to add value. Laura, there's some questions in the chat, I think. Did you want to take those?
Yeah, so we've got a good one here that's kind of a practical question, which is you were mentioning that there's up to 500, 600 activities sometimes getting added to that weekly plan. How do you go about coordinating those 600 activities, and like how long does that prep typically take to get all of those into the schedule and your weekly plan?
That is a very good question. It sounds a bit unrealistic, but we try to get a PEP like this with so many activities also in 2 hours. Sometimes it's 2 hours and 20 minutes, but we try to have a PEP not longer than 2 hours. There are many reasons why. People are not getting concentrated anymore. This is like an intense meeting. And being intensely involved in 2 hours is a really strong work for every person. Then second, it's a stand-up meeting. So you're not sitting there. You're not having your mobile phone there. after 2 hours, you need to make a break and give people someone else, and then the tension breaks down. So we realized if we are really hard on the fact how we run through those meetings and how the people coming prepared, and even sometimes you need to talk to trade partners. Sorry, you need to be more precise in the words you choose. The information we want from you is it done? And did the guy who is your client also accepting it? It's done? And so in this case, with a good prep work, you really get along with 2 hours. And in the design phase, it's more or less 1 hour because we want to have it very quick and speedy. That preciseness helps a lot in the process.
Makes sense. And I guess just a follow-on question out of curiosity, are there any sort of instructions that you would give to the trades and the folks that are involved in those meetings, like prior to the meeting, so that they're not walking in like, oh, I don't have anything organized, I'm not ready for this meeting? Like, is there stuff that teams should be doing to make sure that they're coming in fully focused
Absolutely.
and fully ready to have that meeting?
A little funny story to share. I was just adjusted at Berlin. So basically every trade, every process owner that is part of the last planner system has homework to do. Nobody comes unprepared. That's not okay. That's not a walk-in meeting and I have a look. So you have to be, first of all, you have to be prepared to know your stuff, what has been done, why it hasn't been done. You also mark the post-it notes with one mark that you saying it's done. And the done, so that means the assurance that it's actually done comes from your client in the meeting, that he, like the next trade partner that puts on your work to say, yes, it's in the condition I like it and I can continue working, so the smooth workflow can continue. So there's prep work to do, and also there's prep work to do to the future planning, because obviously in that meeting you need to also replan a new 6th week. And you're not doing that live on stage and thinking about, oh, well, what would I do there and how many people do I have there? So people coming really with like, and I call it like food boxes, like my kids having like small stainless steel food boxes. I prepare them for school. And we have trade partners, they getting food boxes as well. And in these food boxes are the sticky notes in, and there's the pen, and then they wrote that the evening before or whatever, and they bring that stuff in, and then they sorting it just into it and take the conversation with their peers what they need. And that obviously speeds up the process a lot in order to, because a PEP means we evaluating the past, we learn and getting data out of the past, the KPIs, and then we look at the KPIs before we replan it. Because I always say, if you don't have the KPI before you replan, you can't learn. You will not behave differently if you don't see the number, what you actually get. This is like running around in jogging. You want to have your round number in order to make a difference in the second round. And then you continue working basically on replanning and updating the plan. And then at the end, everyone introduces his plan to have a smooth workflow for the upcoming weeks. I hope that explains it.
Yeah, I think that explains it pretty well. I do have another question here. This one's a little bit of a long one, but I think the gist of what they're trying to ask is that, what do you do in the case where you've got a lot of people that are coming into these data center projects that don't have a lot of expertise, yet they're sort of being relied on for being experts as last planners? So like, how do you handle that where like they may not actually know what they don't know when they're coming into some of these situations? So like, is there some coaching tips or like stuff that you can do to help those individuals that might be, one, not familiar with last planner, and two, not familiar with data center construction?
You have obviously both. To be fair, not familiar with last planner is easier. That's easier to explain. One that is not so much into data center and does not really know what he or she needs to do to achieve things. That gets basically be very transparent so everybody sees it. And as a coach, you can, in this case, you can help to starting conversation with the colleagues and the peers. And these conversations are always about, okay, do you understand what the next one needs from you? Do you understand what should be in the wall, what should be on the ceiling, what should be on the floor before the next one installs things? And then obviously you're using all three elements with such persons. You then go like, this is the process how we're going to build it. So we cannot step out of this overall process. There is an order what things can be parallel and what things need to be sequential after each other. So you are here. This we already have. So you need to be working here before this guy starts. And now look in the room. Here's this guy. Ask him what is the condition you need to produce that he can start working. Then these guys understanding more what they need to do. Of course, that can happen. That will not work. And then you obviously need to ask, do you have a colleague? Can someone come in as well? Can we get someone in? Like obviously I cannot explain to someone how to install properly technically certified bus bars. So that's not my point and not for my team. The trade partners need to know this themselves, obviously.
There's an interesting question here about, it's obvious, what your value is at the start, where you get people aligned to using LPS and getting the project moving and things. How do you add value then during the project? Does your role change, I guess, would be a good way of putting that.
Yes. That is a very good question. First of all, it is also for us tough. It's more tough it's easy at the beginning because there you're making a difference. And then I always say this is similar to a football coach or in any big sport. You get a new manager in, he changes the system and the people take the system on and they have their first success. You are the star. Great. So now you need to still performing and keeping that team on that level. And this is your expectation to keep that on that level. And this is hard enough because it's just normal and nature that people stepping back down to their old ways of doing. However, the problem is the expectation of the client and of the GCs or who it is that you bring every 2 months like a rise as you did in the first 2 months. And to keeping basically the team there and the expectations from everyone else rises and you still fighting keeping the team up on just on the same level is also a communication skill to the client to always show him, look, it's not like that every 2 months your team gets 20% more productive. Look at this, how hard it is to just keep there. And again, thinking about if we would be not on that stability, how much time and money we will lose if we just going down. And I think it's really this communication and expectation management with the clients to show what the nature of the work of a coach is. And it's more like this. So sorry to say, it's not that I have more tricks to keep the team pushing up 20% every week. It's not possible, but it's really about the communication and the expectations.
Yeah, good answer.
And it also helps, to be fair, to add, you need to also show this to your team, because sometimes we had teams that they think after 4 months, oh, well, it's not necessary to work with Refine anymore. That goes, you can do this alone. That's not a problem. And in data center projects, if you're working all the time with different teams, I'm actually even would say the hypothesis, if you want a high performance, you don't want to have an internal last planner moderator. You want to have an external. You want to have someone, his only responsibility is to bring the best out of the system and get the best out of the whole team. This is like in any, again, sports related, because we want to have the high performance team. So you don't want to have that someone needs to play an official role and have this on his one shoulder. And once a week, he is there for 2 hours and is doing this one. Alone, this degrades the system in the way it is. And I think that's also important to know.
Awesome. Let's
see. We have a couple
see.
of questions here, and they're somewhat software oriented. So the first one is, what scheduling software do you use? And do you use, I mean, I'd probably add on, do you use scheduling software? Because I know you've talked about doing this physically on sticky notes as well. So maybe if you can
Yes.
talk to that, that'd be great.
First of all, I don't call it scheduling software. As I said, with my two brains, I'm a firm believer we will not make project management great again, if we take an American phrase. Project management has and was at its best already, and it showed us that project management alone is only helps us to be in 25% of all projects successful. When we look at the PMI studies. And that's why I believe it is the firm system change in construction we need to have production thinking and project management, both. We need both. So, and that means a scheduling software, to be fair, is still the same that is P6 or MS Project, whatever, but the scheduling software is not trying to controlling a production. The scheduling software is only there to show, hey, that's the time plan, these are the milestones, and it shows, well, these milestones are achieved, and it's probably, in my case, more contract-based. But what it does not, definitely not, is steering the production of design, of construction, or of commissioning. For this, we're using production planning, like Nialli, we're using in one data center project now. We have used other systems as well, but we always combining it with sticky notes. So we never do all complete online, because the people need to stand shoulder to shoulder next to each other and plan this in. And as if it is on the overall process analysis, if it is on the milestone and phase plan, and on the 6-week look ahead, the same. This can be, of course, done if you have enough digital monitors, then you can do this all together at some products. But I always mixing it up with the sticky notes. And the reason is, I think, more psychology. I believe people misusing the best software product you can have if they think only in project management. So like if as a project manager, if you're using Nialli, I'm not sure, Ellen, if you agree, but if the person that uses the software thinks in project management, has no idea from Lean, it will not get a lot of value out of Nialli or any other product.
Yeah.
If you have this thinking, then you can get value out of those products, and then you can combine it. But I have to be also fair, I not very often using in data center projects, especially software. I use always software for KPIs, but that's just Microsoft Power BI or a self-programmed app to track the KPIs. Because the factor of the people and the factor of that you're basically writing small notes in, and immediately your short-term and long-term brain is activated, because a person writes something important on a small piece of paper and puts it in front of everyone there. This handwriting is doing something with our brains, what like keyboards and other stuff not does yet. And that's why I believe if you really want a high performance, the sticky notes still help.
Yeah, you're bringing up a topic near and dear to my heart, and it's that ownership. And as soon as things become digital, there's a tendency it can become arm's length. You still need to touch and own. So I can talk a little bit about our software and use on the interactive displays. There's still a touching aspect when you status the tags, or when you actually write them or move them. You at least have some kind of relationship with the content.
Absolutely.
You're not hiding behind a keyboard and mouse, which is arm's length. And I'm glad to hear you say that, because that even has, the respect for people principle. It is about the people, and having them be honest and make promises, and the whole conversations you're talking about, the shoulder to shoulder, like that's the respect part. It's a really important part of LPS.
Absolutely.
Is there anything else there, Laura? I don't know if we got any more questions.
I see one more in the chat, and it kind of streams off of this, and this is really, do you use an integrated schedule where contractors update their section, or do you manage all the updates? And I think the last planner system, it's very much the access to the field, and you want the last planners out there doing the updates.
I'm
but
not
if there's anything
updating
else you want to
anything.
add on.
No, I'm not updating anything. I'm even restricting myself. My company is not even allowed to do that. We don't have any insurance or like, we are not schedulers. We can't do that. I'm not taking responsibility for that because I'm not doing that work. And that's also, I was a scheduler in the past in my career. And I believe I made good schedules. I put a lot of work in that. However, nobody followed them. Nobody understood them. So they've been basically useless and a waste of time for the whole project. And I asked the project director once, honestly, why I'm doing this? Why do you pay every month my company to do that stuff if nobody reads it, nobody's interested in it? And he's like, well, look, Klaus, at the end of the project, we will be in court or in some fight. And that is valuable for me, that someone documents all the mistakes others make. And I felt myself so non-value adding at all. And that was then when I decided to quit that job and go to the UK and do a PhD in lean construction, because, like I said, no, not doing that. Can do whatever it wants, but not me. I'm not wasting my time with that.
Nice.
It's kind of funny. So, and I don't know who said this the other day, but they basically said that if you could predict the future with construction schedules, like, you wouldn't be a scheduler. You'd probably be a trader on Wall Street, because if you have that much visibility into the future, there's other professions that would pay a lot more money. So
yes, that's good. I asking scheduler always the question, okay, think about the last schedule you when you made it the first time. And now pick any activity of your choice in the last 2 months. Have that activity in your mind, and now asking yourself, you are just prepared, you just made that schedule. Now asking yourself, how many monthly salaries would you bet on that date that it will keep until that time? And I never had a scheduler who would be able to bet 1 month's salary on it. And then my second answer on that one is, okay, why do you moan about it that nobody follows it? Not even you believe in it. And then we're coming to the nature and the physics of psychology of the schedule. The academically, the old reason to have these CPM and Gantt chart schedules, the very old reason, was to figure out if a project is feasible to do in that time frame. And someone came to that stupid idea to use those schedules, to use them as a working method, or even to use them for production steering. And that is nonsense, complete nonsense.
Yeah, there's a big difference to, what the schedule is versus how you're going to build it. Like, those are two very different things, which is
absolutely
what you're pointing out, which is good. I don't think there's any more questions, and we're pretty much at time, unless somebody has something and they just haven't taken the time to put it in. I don't have any more. I think it's been very illuminating. The difference, I think, the title was about rethinking, and I think there's enough differences. You do need to think differently about data centers, and it really pointed out to me the importance of the design phase. You really talked about that, and I think that's the case in any construction project, but it seems even more so in this case.
Absolutely, yes.
All right.
Perfect.
Well, I think that's
one
it.
Last question that snuck in here, and that's just, what do you think would be a good primer for getting started with this systems thinking? Do you kind of have any recommendations maybe for somebody who's kind of getting into this type of thinking?
If I understand it right, with the systems thinking, I think the best primer for me is really try to not think too much about, with data centers, of having a construction site, because you really don't have. yes, there are maybe some pillars and there is a little bit of facade, but actually this is just like a little bit of something nice looking around an massive MEP electric machine. And if you're thinking about this machine, think about that this is basically a temporary factory. This is like a roof, walls, and you're working in and out, and you're sending 500 workers in and out, and they're bringing a lot of material in there. And then the question is to get in the systems thinking, all right, what are my production processes and my production lines in that factory to build that thing? And I believe that's I hope I understood the question correctly. That would bring a primer to change things. I was last summer in Japan for a research trip, since I'm also the first professor in Germany for lean construction. And I took a time out in teaching and went to Japan. And one thing in Japan, or two things I would love to share here that also goes to this prime. The Japanese guys, and this was like one of the top 5 construction companies in Japan, they came and basically said, Klaus, we learned during hard times with not having projects finished on time, in budget, and so on, that it's a very stupid idea to not having the designer and the builder together at the right time or in the same company. So this company basically has, I think, something about 17,000 employees. And from the 17,000, it's like nearly 3,000 engineers and designers. They only do design and planning. And they said, we never do MEP design and building separation. It's always one company that does both. Either we're doing it ourselves or we have a partner that designs and builds, because otherwise you are lost in translation in between. And the second thing was, they said a construction site that is productive is like a factory. You open the door and you're working in and you're feeling yourself in like a factory. And this is true even if you're doing groundworks and excavations. And they spend money in Japan to put steel floor, temporary steel floor, on the whole field, that when you're working in, you're not getting any dirty boots, even though they're making groundworks.
Wow. That's incredible.
And I think those two primers should help.
I love that idea of thinking of it as a factory. I think that's really neat. I haven't really heard it described like that, but it really resonates in terms of getting started to even know how to think about what you're planning. I think that's very helpful.
Perfect.
All right.
Well, I think we're good, Laura.
Yeah, I think that takes us to the top of the hour. So thank you so much, Professor Claus, for joining us today. This has been a great discussion on data center construction. And yeah, your contact information is up on the screen there. We'll also send out a recap email on the session if you'd like to connect with Dr. Claus on LinkedIn. I'm sure he'd be happy to connect with you there. And yeah, we hope to see you on the next one in May.
Perfect.
Awesome. Thanks,
Thank you
everyone.
very much. Bye-bye.
See you, everybody. Bye-bye.